Hey, what's going on, y'all? What's going on? Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back to the You Ain't Finna Give It To Me Like That podcast. Welcome back. Glad to have you guys all in session. Shout out to you guys for coming through, showing your love and support, watching as always. Shout out to Planet Free Spirit in the chat. I see you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Make sure you guys, get that like button when you come in the room. Make sure you guys get your refreshments because you definitely need them for this one. We'll go over a few topics, a few things, get some conversation going, thoughts and opinions going. But before we get started, gotta introduce my bro to the room. What's going on, Reese? Maurice, what's going on with you? What's happening?
What's going on, family? How you doing? How you doing?
All right, all right. Yep. We're back in the building, man. As expected, we're back in the building. We had a pretty good show out, for the first video that officially launched on the channel, that we did a couple days ago about the rising concepts of poly lifestyles in America, and definitely can't wait to do part two of that. Open up the door, have some conversations about that. But today we're gonna cover some news. Today we're gonna discuss some topics. I think we just got word, and Maurice, you can let me know about Robert Blake, popular actor that just recently passed.
Yes,
Tell us
sir.
about that, Maurice.
Look like
Yeah, what's your memories about Robert Blake? You might be busy, but for those who don't know, Robert Blake, the popular actor, just recently passed. If anyone knows him, he was Mickey Mouse in some of the older forms of short films early in the days back in like the 40s or so. He was basically the role of Mickey Mouse in a lot of shows, and so he definitely recently passed. But we're gonna cover some other news as well. We just got word of that. I believe he was 89 when he passed today. But we got some topics on the discussion on the rise. We're definitely going to talk about this Mexico abduction situation and the history behind that, as well as what's going on with it. And then we're going to definitely get into some other stuff. Um, but I think I want to start off pretty light, and I definitely want to start with just the way the economy's going. Um, with the way the economy is now, I'm not sure if you guys have been paying attention, but a lot of the prices for groceries have gone up, and even though prices have fluctuated up and then went back down, eggs, for example, was one of those things. We're still seeing one particular sector of grocery that is still suffering, and that's of course the candy gum market. And there are some statistics that came out recently that well, nobody's buying gum. Actually, they haven't bought it since the pandemic started, and they're taking losses across the board. And so that's just a further testament to when you have a situation like the pandemic. For those who know the pandemic, at times it can shift, the society, and one of the ways it did is started making us as a society wear masks, something we didn't think that was something we would ever come across. We seen it in Japan, we seen it in China, but we never thought we would be like that until 2020 hit and surprised us. So yeah, the economy's definitely taken a bit of a hit. Even though the price to produce certain groceries and natural foods have gone down, the prices that they're being sold at have not budged, and so they're being very expensive as well as taxation.
can I
What
ask
do
a
you,
question real quick, bro?
yes, sir.
I couldn't help but to hear you say that people aren't buying bubble gum.
Yes, absolutely. They're not buying bubble gum at
What?
all. Companies are
What?
taking losses, man, losses. And you think about it, it's because of the pandemic. They haven't recovered since. That's it. That's one of the industries that hasn't recovered. So you'll notice like candy prices are going up. We just went through the situation with eggs going up, and now they've came back down to a reasonable amount. Um, you used to you used to sell eggs, three for $5 if you really had it like that. But you know, glad that that things are kind of mellowing out. What do you think about just the economy, the state it's in right now?
I mean, if I can be honest, I mean, knowing what we kind of know, I feel like it's probably only going to get worse. Uh, I mean, we'll probably have a little, a little like up and down here and there where things are looking up. I just feel like it's gonna get worse because I noticed something, man. When inflation goes up and prices go up and interest rates go up, none of that stuff really ever comes down. So where it's at now is where it's gonna be, and it's only gonna get higher and higher. Like
Absolutely.
no, there's not gonna be a nationwide uh okay, rent's gonna go down. It's not gonna happen. If it's up, it's gonna keep going up. It's there. So I just feel like it's only gonna get worse and it's just gonna be a slow burn until it's to the point where nobody can really afford to live. That's just what it seems like it's going to.
It's getting there now. I mean, we've seen the effect of it in California with you know people that are even making 80 grand a year or more, living in tent cities there, or moving out of the state to somewhere that's a bit more affordable. Uh, Even though it puts their job at risk. So yeah, we're seeing that, and I think that's definitely the direction where things are going. Where families are going to have to be renting rooms if they can't afford to rent a home. So it's getting crazy out here. I think we hear the news of oh, they're going to raise the minimum price that people can work for, and raise that up to like certain states are willing to do like $12 or something as a minimum wage amount. But in my experience, every time they raise the minimum wage, the cost of living goes up. So it's like a game. You're not going to catch up, even
Yeah,
though when you think you're catching
it's never in the general public's favor. Ever.
up. Absolutely, absolutely. All right, all right. So speaking about the economy, another thing that's taking a hit um, is the wave of electric vehicles in contrast with gasoline vehicles. Uh, a lot of people are being pushed, by their states. I know California's one, I know Detroit is another, where they're like, look, we need the whole state to be electric vehicle only by 2026 or 2027. And it's like the economy's not ready for that. Most people aren't ready to replace their vehicles. Most people can't even afford electric vehicles, even at that. So to have to go and try to do all that replacement, yeah, there's tax breaks, but a tax break is not going to help much with the car that's 60,000 or more. So you really have to look at the state, the condition of the economy's in, and really see like it's no benefit. But people are doing it. Some people are making the move. Some people are getting their Teslas and the Rivians and these other companies like Mercedes and I know Honda and Toyota working on some. But here's a caveat, Maurice, and maybe you can let me on what you think about this. Uh, Maintenance for gasoline cars is pretty straightforward. If you know how the engine works and functions, you pretty much can find someone to repair a car. With the new electric vehicles, it's going to be very hard to find someone to do maintenance on your vehicle. You know, what do
I
you think about
mean,
that?
not necessarily, because this is the thing. You already got these electric companies, electric car companies. They already have it set up to where, unfortunately, you're gonna have to go to them to get those vehicles fixed until there's enough mechanics nationwide that are
Right.
good enough to work on those type of vehicles. So they already got the game going with it. you know. So you're gonna, you know, those dealer prices are gonna be a little bit more expensive than just, you know, going to a regular.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. But you can't just call your uncle Leroy to come and work on your Tesla. When it fails, you gotta.
No, it's out. Them guys, they retired right now because of that. They done. Can't teach them
Absolutely.
old dogs no new tricks. It's over with for them.
Yeah, gone are the days of Uncle Leroy with the gas stained rag and the overalls. But
Yeah,
he gets your alternator back up though.
ain't no more taking it to Uncle Roy to get an oil change. Shout out to my Uncle Roy, Roy Nelson. Ain't no more of that. Unc, you done,
Right.
son? You done?
Yeah, like so. Yeah, it's just it makes it a little bit more difficult. I'm noticing certain car manufacturers don't even want you to open the hood on a BMW, for example. You open the hood, you void the warranty. Like they want to make sure you come to them for all your repairs, and it's
Yeah,
going to
for
be
sure,
expensive.
for sure.
It's going to be expensive. Another cost I see with these electric vehicles is finding local stops where they can actually charge that actually support their vehicle, because these different vehicles have different plugs to charge the vehicle, and they're not all the same. All of them aren't using Tesla coils to charge their vehicles. So, finding a place to charge, hopefully one day, whether it's Tesla, because I think Tesla's moving in that direction, where they're starting
Yeah,
to add
eventually, what's gonna have to
adapters.
happen is they're gonna have to go to a sort of a universal charging system because what's going on now is, yeah, just like you said, all these different car manufacturers got all these different plugs, so
Right,
you're making it harder for the consumer because Tesla already has a network that's already up and running, and you know, due to competition, you got people like Rivian who are like, oh, we're not going to use Tesla plugs. They're going to make
right,
a premium off of that, so we got to use our own plug. So
absolutely,
it's going to get to a point where it's going to have to happen. So probably pretty soon, you know, the
right.
government's probably going to put a little bit of pressure on Tesla to join the ranks and getting like some type of universal system.
Yeah,
Um,
it's just very much how like they did with Apple. The EU forced Apple to use USB-C now to
yeah,
across
so
the
the newer
board.
iPhones are going to end up, yeah, same deal, same
Yep,
deal. You
yep.
got the
So
big dog on the block who's like, hey, we're going to use what we use, and we don't care if everybody else is using what they use.
right, right,
Eventually, until the pressure gets on, where all right, you're going to need some type of universal system. But at the same time, if the transition moves as fast as it's going now, you might be able to get away with, hey, you got certain gas stations that have multiple chargers for multiple vehicles. You know, I mean,
absolutely,
it just depends on. I think it just depends on going forward on how much pressure is going to be levied on them.
right,
Because I mean, let's
right.
be real. Apple's gotten away with using their Lightning port and they 3010 for the longest time before they got pressure on
Longest
them.
time, yes.
Yep, before they got pressure on them to finally switch over to a more universal cord. So
And then something that Tesla is starting to do in select locations, if you use the app, whether you're on the Tesla or not, and you want to charge at a location that has support for your charging, port, Tesla is starting to apply adapters onto their charger coil, so you can, get your vehicle, your Rivian or whatever, charged with the Tesla charger, but you know that's also going to be a higher premium for charging rates. So that's another thing. It's very much like how Apple's doing it. Apple's like, okay, yeah, we'll commit to the USB-C thing, but now all USB-C cables aren't alike. So we're gonna have to make sure that you use one directly from us, or we're gonna slow down the charging on it. So like companies have to find a way to capitalize on this whole unification thing. I think if anyone's smart at this point, try to come up with a universal, platform where anybody with any type of electric vehicle or gas vehicle can come in and fill up and get charged up or get the gasoline filled up. and make it neutral, make it universal, and then prevent these major car companies from taking over in that lane because they will if you allow them to. So, but that's one of the concerns of EV owners is having to find a place to charge. Not everybody wants to have charging hubs installed in their home or things like that. So it's one of the qualms of having to own an EV vehicle. But I think the direction is we're all going to eventually have to go that way. That's kind of where things are going.
Yeah, for
Uh,
sure.
I wouldn't
I
be.
think it's going to be harder for, surprisingly, I think it's probably going to be harder for middle of America to make the transition to the electric vehicles on the strength that, one, in the middle of America, of course, this is a heartland, and you don't have as many big cities in
Yeah.
the Midwest as you probably would up and down the West Coast, up and down the East Coast. You know, I
Yep.
mean, we
The
got Chicago,
Dakotas. Yeah, the
so pretty much,
Dakotas,
yeah.
Iowa, Nebraska.
Chicago is probably the biggest. Well, not probably. Chicago is the biggest city in the Midwest, and then you got,
Detroit.
yeah, Detroit, St. Louis, Kansas City,
Yeah.
uh, and then you got Cincinnati, Cleveland, Ohio. But Chicago's probably, if I understand anything like I do about other major cities and traveling a lot, Chicago's probably got a lot of electric vehicles already. But
Already,
it's
yeah.
going to be the rest of the Midwest that's probably going to struggle. You go out west, you
Oklahoma,
go to California.
Texas.
California is Tesla out. You
Yep.
go, let's take it down south. You go Austin, Texas, Tesla out. Atlanta, Tesla out. Uh, so those places are already slowly have made the transition, and
Right.
places like California give you tax breaks and credit for already having an electric vehicle. So I mean, it's coming soon, but I think the middle of America is going to be a little bit slower than everybody else in getting to it.
Yeah, and then that's when states are gonna start penalizing you for, oh, you have a gas vehicle and here's what the emissions are doing to the ozone layer. Here's your fee. Like they're gonna find a way to
Yep, that's
capitalize,
already happening.
right? And eventually, like, yeah, you'll get fined for not having an EV because oh, they're trying to protect the environment or whatnot, when really it's just that's the new wave. So I think you guys should definitely be ready. Look out for your EVs and do your research on those. But those are some of the struggles that EV owners are currently going through. Just some maintenance and just making sure that they can charge. Even owning an EV is much more expensive than owning a regular gas guzzling car. So it's interesting, but that's the way that the world's heading, and we have to make sure that we're ready to embrace that. So
Shameless plug. Talking to my fellow African Americans. It's not too late to invest. Get your stock game up. Let's get on these
absolutely,
electric companies right now.
yep,
Especially while a bunch of them are low. I mean, Tesla's the big dog, so they're a little bit higher to invest in. But if you got it, go for it. But the other ones, all those up and coming electric vehicle companies, go
right,
ahead, get behind those stocks.
yeah. Also, I think like if you find out who's the manufacturer for these car batteries, that's another one to invest in because I
Oh yeah,
guarantee you, a lot of these car companies are not making their own batteries. They got to be up to code. So yeah, whoever's making these batteries, definitely invest in them because every car needs a set of batteries, and yeah, so it'll be a wise investment.
for sure.
All right, all right. So yeah, I want your opinion on something real quick here. Let me share my screen here, and make sure you guys hit the like button, subscribe, and definitely put some comments in the comment section if you guys have any thoughts or opinions. Let me share my screen here. I want your thoughts about something. All right, I'm pull this up, And let us go full screen real quick. So, what's your thoughts about President Zelensky now requesting more aid as Russia continues to pressure uh, Ukrainian cities? What's your thoughts about that? Should we even entertain that? You know, or
Okay. Before I answer this question, I need to know what face do I need to put on? Do I need to put on my black face or do I need to put on my American face for this answer? Oh, you know what? It doesn't matter because it's going to be the same for both. Honestly, I really think we've done enough.
absolutely,
I think we've done enough. Listen, I understand politics. I get it, but looking at it from a perspective of somebody who's here and I live in this country and I know the ills and woes of this country, I get it. Foreign aid helps to strengthen our international portfolio, if you want to say that.
yep, yep,
Um, they want they want to try to make this as a member of NATO. You know, NATO's always been about keeping Russia out from the
yep,
beginning of NATO. If that's really a thing, that's not a conspiracy theory. It's always about
yeah,
keeping Russia out.
yep,
So basically, at this point, the U.S. has given Ukraine billions of dollars in aid to fight
billions,
a war.
billions,
Billions,
and
multiple
and
billions to fight a war of a bigger
he's asking for
country.
more. That's the worst part. It's like, you know, let's
Like
not.
how much more do you think you know what I'm saying you can get? Because my thing is at this point, all of those billions that they're sending to foreign aid, I always feel some type of way when the US goes out of their way to help another
Yeah,
country with so many resources when within
yeah,
our own country there are so many issues where the money could help us per se. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that anything's wrong with foreign aid. It's absolutely necessary and it's needed, especially when you have a country like in America who, unfortunately, at this point in the game, has to have their fingers in everything in order to attain their power that they
uh,
got. I
absolutely,
get it. But in the same
absolutely,
breath, with you helping the world, you gotta help yourself.
absolutely.
So I just feel some type of way sometimes when we do a lot for other countries, but don't put that aid right here in America in these inner cities, strengthening the education system, you know,
Yeah,
things that can be helped, so that's my whole shtick on this, regardless.
yeah. My thing is like, let's look before this whole situation between Ukraine and Russia. America had already given out millions, if not billions, to help Ukraine go through, the pandemic, as far as providing them vaccinations and things like that's not something that you could just that they just give out for free. They have to pay for that. They had to pay to transport it, make sure that when they transported it, it was in a safe way because if you transport it and the temperature conditions aren't right, or if the person transporting it is moving driving too recklessly, they could damage the product. Like they had to really make sure that they transported things properly. So helping them, go through the pandemic/pandemic to now he's asking for more security assistance and allies, and then he's talking about fighter jets. Like, do you know how much it's going to cost for us to send out fighter jets just to come help you defend yourself? Like,
Yeah, and
clearly,
I mean, yeah, let's not discount the fact that man, we're really fighting a proxy war here.
yeah,
This is really a proxy war, and it's getting kind of sketchy, And now you're talking about asking for air support, you
right,
know. Don't get me wrong, we keep hearing this whole, well, Russia might use nuclear weapons. Now I'm gonna be honest. I don't think that Vladimir Putin. I don't unless something drastic happens. I don't think that he will go that route because let's all be real. We've seen what nuclear weapons can do. The whole world has seen what nuclear weapons can do. So
right, right.
Once you unleash that, I mean, you're gonna. It's not gonna be a favorable position for any country that decides to go that route. Let's just say that. So I don't think that he wants to go there. But I mean, you got to think, how far. But you got to question yourself, how far is he willing to take it if all of these countries keep giving Ukraine more and more aid? Um, it's just a real tough situation to be in. It's really nerve wracking to be honest. You gotta unmute yourself, bro. Can you hear you? Yeah, Melvin, you there?
Yeah, yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay. Yeah, you dropped out a bit, but yeah, Planet Free Spirit was saying that imagine how the economy would look if we invested those funds here instead of investing them out in Ukraine. And I think I have to kind of bring back, uh, Kansu's kind of statement about how the whole goal is to completely break the dollar, like to where we no longer depend on it. And I think if they're doing everything else to help everyone else instead of fixing this economy, that's what it looks like. It looks like they're genuinely trying to break the dollar and replace it with something else instead of actually helping our own economy get back on its feet. Because we have another pandemic slash pandemic, we're done. Like we barely got off, getting back the economy, with the last 3 years. So, you know, but yeah, I just want your thoughts about that because I think he's gonna still keep asking for help no matter what.
I mean, yeah, he's not giving up his country until it's taken from him. I mean,
Right.
what? I mean, let's be real. What?
But like Israel, like you have no standing army. How are your locals the army that you have? All this money that you've been investing in, and you couldn't even come together with a full time standing army. Like, and you expect America to just come in and do like they did Iraq, Iran, and Afghanistan, and spend years, years, years in Ukraine for nothing.
Yeah, but see, there's a big difference between those situations versus his situation.
Absolutely, absolutely. But I still feel like we shouldn't be getting involved in that at this time. Uh, Plus, we already froze Russia's assets, so the money that they're currently using, they're getting from China. China's funding the war, basically. So the moment we get involved, China's going to only get involved, and it's
So I
going to be
say these whole proxy wars, it's just real.
exactly,
It gets real sketchy, man. It gets real
exactly.
sketchy.
Yep. And I really hope that the president we have in office doesn't try to entertain this. I really hope he doesn't.
Oh no, not Jim Crow Joe.
Jim Crow Joe, man. Jim Crow Joe. All right. So I know something happened yesterday that most of us aren't aware of. That is yesterday was officially Happy International Women's Day. So I didn't really, know that that was the official holiday, but yeah, that's a holiday where women were, I guess, fighting for rights around that time. So around like the early 1900s, primarily white women, but yeah. So they officially made it a holiday to represent, the kind of social injustice and the lack of equality around women, and it made that a holiday, and that was yesterday. So for all the women, happy, you know, International Women's Day. That was something that happened. I think it's kind of newish. I'm not sure too much around the history of the holiday. Have you heard of this before now?
Yeah, I have. Um,
Okay,
I just want to say shout out to all the black women,
absolutely.
in the diaspora. I mean, America, Haiti, Jamaica, all
Yeah,
the way down to South America, all the way back over to Africa and Europe, all the Africans of the diaspora, wherever they may be. Shout out to all the women. Happy International Women's Day to y'all. I'll be late.
yep, yep. I second that. All right. So before we get into the main news, we need to do an update. Um, so me and Maurice been kind of following this whole situation with the 6-year-old in Newport News, Virginia, my hometown, uh, where he pretty much shot his teacher. Um, and there's been updates, and yeah, y'all ain't finna give it to us like that, but here we go. So the 6-year-old, after further investigation, where he actually did shoot and wound the teacher is still alive. The teacher is not pressing any charges against the 6-year-old. She's pressed charges against the school. And authorities in the city also aren't pressing charges against the 6-year-old. Um, so that lets me believe that maybe the parents may get the blowback from that. Um, but what happened was the 6-year-old boy had used his mother's handgun back in January 6th uh, at the shooting in Rich Neck Elementary School.
All right, make
And,
sure you add context to it.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I gotta add
Apparently, the firearm was secured and locked
oh yeah, it was secured and
before, and
locked,
it was out of his reach, but he somehow was able to get to it.
and it was legal. Keep that in mind. It wasn't just a pistol that was just out the streets. It was legal. The mother owned it, and it was on. They said it was on a high closet shelf and had a lock on it. And somehow the 6-year-old was able to go up there and get it. And not only go up there and get it, put it in his backpack, take it to school, and apparently several people that inspected the child's backpack had fully inspected it and still decided to give the bag back to the child. I believe they said two people had inspected it before the shooting took place. Um, so right now in the state, you can't try anyone. Um, Planet Free Spirit said they need to be accountable for raising Chucky. uh,
Wow.
yeah, I think right now the reason why the city nor the teacher is pressing charges is because per state laws, and make sure you guys are up on your state laws. It's very important. You definitely don't want to be at the last end of trying to figure out state laws when you need it. But per state laws, a child or minor can't be tried when they're under 11 years old. And so because he's 6, it looks like This 6 year old won't be charged at all with the wounding and the assault of the teacher. That's what's currently going on. They won't be a stand trial or anything because they believe that the child wouldn't have the competency to understand the legal system or what a charge means, but they understand how to shoot a gun. So it's a sticky situation. I would definitely say um, they definitely are still investigating, and when they find someone else to blame, I mean, when they find someone else that they can prove beyond a reasonable doubt that committed a crime, then they'll charge them. Um, so that's the case update right now. Um, Another thing is in the state of Virginia, there's something called infancy defense, where a child under 7 can't be prosecuted for a crime because they're too young to be capable of forming criminal intent. And a judge would have to find the child competent to be able to stand trial, which means that they would have to understand what they're saying legally, the legal proceedings, the attorneys that are defending them, and be able to assist them. And I don't think a child that's under 7 can do that, and clearly they don't either. But this is why the child is definitely not being charged with anything. Just so everyone understands, it's kind of hard to prove that a 6 year old understood that what he did could have permanent consequences. This is a quote from Julie McConnell, who is a law professor at the University of Richmond.
He didn't understand. Let's be real here. I mean, don't get me wrong. As a 6 year old, you're not stupid, but in the same token, you probably don't. Just like you said, you don't understand the consequences of some actions that you may choose to do. Because for a kid in that situation, I mean, I can't think for the kid. I don't know what was going through his mind, but I can only put myself in his shoes by trying to understand how I was acting when I was his age. And when you're young, you think fast and impulsive most of the time.
Right,
You haven't lived long enough to understand or be taught how to think before you act. That's kind of something that comes with experience and teaching. And at 6 years old, you're not really on that level. So this is the thing. I'm not going to go into detail, but I can say that I know when I was young, I did some pretty heinous things, and I feel like
allegedly.
no, it wasn't allegedly. I did them. I'm just not gonna say what it is, so that way I can't incriminate myself anyway. But um, I I did some wild stuff, man, and I'll say this: yeah, when you're a kid, you don't really think of the consequences when you're doing things. And I'm just
No.
speaking from experience because that was the furthest thing from my mind anytime I'm thinking about a situation where I did something, So especially being that young.
Right,
Um, I know a lot of people are gonna come down on the mom, but if everything is as being reported, it was locked up, it was put up, it was out of his reach. Only thing that I can say is or only thing that I would fault her on is as a firearm owner, you should always know where your firearms are at all times. I'm very pro Second Amendment. I live in a pro Second Amendment state, so
right, right.
I definitely. I mean, maybe you could say I'm biased, whatever, don't care. But I will say that you should always know where your firearms are at all times. And if you know your children know where your firearms are, you definitely have to pay extra close attention to make sure that they can't easily access those areas. Because I can remember a time when I was younger and I found a gun in my house before, and it was out of my reach, and it was somewhere where I didn't have no business being. I just happened to find it because I was being a curious kid. So just if you have children in the house, especially children that are young enough to start climbing or
Yeah,
figuring out stuff, make sure you know where your firearms are at all times. And make sure you just keep them out of your reach and do your best to keep them locked up. And if you do keep them locked up, make sure you don't leave the keys with them. Don't do that. That's not a good
absolutely.
idea.
And that's something that the attorney for the family said. He said that James Ellison. He said that the gun was secured in the mom's closet. It was over 6 feet high, and the gun had a trigger lock that required a key. But the thing is for the child to even bypass all of that, he had to have some knowledge of how to do it, come across it, whether somebody whether somebody showed him, or he was watching somebody unlock it and climb up there and go get it, whatever, But clearly, like it was, I wouldn't say easy, but it was too easy for the child to be able to get that gun and be able to fire off on that. Like Planet Free Spirit said here, doesn't the same child have a history of already attacking people? And yes, there is a history of this child attacking people prior to the shooting.
And
Matter of fact,
let's also add context to that. Not only is he 6 years old, but he's already been diagnosed with mental disorders.
that's
Also,
true. That is true. Yep. He is um, the same. Even now, he has acute disability. He was under a care plan that included his mom or his dad attending school with him and accompanying him to class every day. But that one day, the week of the shooting, was the first time where his mother or his father was not with them. It was the first time, that they were not with them, and the situation happens. Um, so right now, the child is getting hospital care and receiving treatment that he needs. But yes, speaking of the past incidents, there were uh, prior to the shooting, 2 days before the shooting, actually, the same teacher, he slammed her cell phone and broke it, according to the teacher, and then he was given a 1 day suspension. But then he returned to the class the next day with a 9 millimeter. So yeah, it's a lot to take in. It's a lot to take in.
yeah, for sure.
It's a lot to take in. Planet Free Spirit here said, how did he know to use a gun at that age? Enough to go above and beyond to get a gun out of reach, to take to school, and then attempt to unalive a teacher he had threatened. Sounds cognizant to me. It sounds like either someone showed him or he was watching. Children are very attentive. They're very,
Very inquisitive children
very
are.
inquisitive too.
Just
So,
the, just take let's take a step back. Let's be real with ourselves.
yeah,
I'm sure we all have faint memories of our childhood.
yeah.
You, I don't know about you, but at 6 years old, I know I wasn't stupid.
Not at all. Not at all. Very
But
nosy.
and I'm not going to even lie. I'll even go further back. By the time I was 6 years old, I had experienced enough for any child to have not experienced at my age.
Right.
And I had seen enough stuff where I shouldn't have seen at that age.
That's
So
true.
let's be real about this. Then you got to also take into account, the current state of the media and how we're digesting media in this day and age now. When I was 6 years old, there was no internet. It didn't exist yet. Um, a streaming service didn't exist. We had regular TV. So the type of content that I was exposed to versus what these children are exposed to nowadays is totally different. So it's not far fetched for a 6 year old in this day and age to have seen someone probably use a gun or probably the internet or TV because unfortunately, America being the country it is, this is a very gung ho society where we're infatuated with weapons and using them. So a kid seeing that, just like they're exposed to everything else, it's not far fetched to understand how to use it if that's what you're normally used to seeing. So, I mean, let's just be real here. So, my thing is, I'm not making excuses for the kid. I don't know the kid, but at the same time, I understand because I can empathize with the fact that I was 6 too, and I had seen a lot of stuff by the time I was 6. So it's not far fetched that a 6 year old would know what a gun could do. Now, I would say that I don't think the 6 year old obviously understood the consequences, but in the same token,
Right.
we're talking about a 6 year old who's already been diagnosed with mental disorders too. So that also has a factor into it. So before I come down on the kid like I would a 26-year-old adult, I would think about that. Hell, even a 26-year-old, hell, that's you've only reached 1 year into your brain being fully developed. I'm just being real, but that's
Right.
another story. That's another
Yeah,
story.
that's another story. But I do have to admit, when I was six, there, the type of content that's out now. Now, and I'm very
We,
old school, so
we
like,
didn't see it like that.
nah, nah.
For
And
us to
then
see, you know what I'm saying? For us to see guns, of course, there were violent movies out. I'm not acting like there weren't,
we didn't.
but to the nature that we see it today, not really. No.
We I remember growing up, we didn't get a TV in our bedroom until like, I think until we were like almost like with 8, 9, 10 years old.
What
So
about sexual content? I mean, the sexual content.
yeah,
You know how hard it was to find that as a kid.
but at the same time,
Today it's everywhere. You just punch it
but
in, and
at
it's
the same
free.
time, remember when folks started getting cable, and folks, not everybody had cable, but the ones who did, you had to be BET uncut and everything, and that was pretty much the apex of what we had, and so we definitely watched that. I can definitely say that.
I don't know, because by the time BET Uncut came around, the P word, all that was free. So you could just easily type that in on the browser and find that.
Right,
So I mean,
right. But still, like compared to
I'm thinking about when I was 6 years old, back in the late 80s, early 90s. So I'm
right,
like,
right, right,
yo,
right, right.
you
But
couldn't
I'm
find
saying
this type of stuff.
compared to now, where you know,
Yeah, it's like open season. Like kids, and then
right,
kids have become to the point where, I got a 2 year old. He knows how to use a tablet. So it's different. When I was his age, there was no such thing as a tablet.
hey, the
I
only
was wearing
tablet.
white hard bottom
ho-
shoes, huh?
Hold on,
Playing with toys.
the only tablet there was at that time when I was 6 was an Etch a Sketch. My guy, like
Yeah, exactly. Etch a sketch. Do you remember how to get on a computer? The old
not at
Apple
all,
computer? A real
not
old Apple computer? No, that's what
not
I'm
at
saying.
all.
We are the last generation that knows what it was like without all the technology and the internet.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yep,
So none of this stuff is far fetched, man. These kids got so much stuff at their disposal
and
versus
that's
what
so
we had.
smart too. Like when I look
Yeah,
at 6 year olds today, like they're not dumb at all. Like they're very observatory. They're very intelligent. It's just as a parent, as a guardian, you have to be mindful of what type
yeah.
of content they have access to.
Do you understand that when we were kids or coming up, in order to do school projects, you had to go to a library? You don't have to
Absolutely.
do that anymore.
No.
If you know how to properly use the internet, everything is at your fingertips. Everything you need.
Yeah. Yeah.
We used
Google
to
and,
go to libraries, dude.
you give a
Think of how
child
ancient that is.
right. You give a child Google and YouTube, I guarantee you they'll find something.
Yeah,
Like
might not be the right thing,
right.
but
But they'll find
uh,
something. We didn't have
yeah.
that then.
So
And even then, like when you used the computer, you were in the library, and there were other people, adults, and that were mindful of what you were doing and how long you were on, and so yeah, things have definitely have changed. Um, but 6-year olds now are very very intelligent.
Well,
Um,
okay. Planet Free Spirits, he says, I was an inquisitive child and I never thought to threaten and unalive teachers. Excuses for that behavior works not what happened to teenage and adult kicks in. Okay, all right, let's do this. I'll be honest with you. When I was a kid, um, I won't say who specifically, but there was one particular person who was very close to me that I did try to harm, not with a firearm, no. But I did want them out of there because I felt like I got tired of being punished. So I was younger than 6. So I'm gonna just leave it there. So I don't know. I don't know. If
nah,
this teacher was on this kid's case, like the person was on my case, then it's not far fetched to think that he probably wanted some get back. I'm just saying. I'm not making excuses. I don't want to minimize what happened.
right,
Um, um, uh, I'm just saying, like, you got to understand and take into account your living situation and what you grew up and what's going on in your life. At the end of the day, we're all individuals. Fortunately, I was never diagnosed with any mental illness. Um, but this kid is. So all I'm saying is just keep that in mind. I seen myself in a situation where I wanted to harm somebody. Luckily, I didn't get as far as he did for sure.
right.
But I'm just saying, kids are very emotional. That's what we know
But
sometimes.
yeah, I in her case, at 6 years old, I wasn't trying to harm anybody at all. The only
I
time,
was. I definitely was. But
yeah,
neither
nah,
here nor there.
I didn't even like go through any of that in elementary school. To like elementary school is pleasant, so it was no thoughts of trying to hurt or harm someone, push someone, punch them, whatever. Like I never had those thoughts. So, I, you know,
Listen, my
it's a
first
little
grade
different.
teacher, it fell down a flight of steps. Let's just say I would not have been mad.
Goodness. All right. So, player free spirit says here, she's just saying you have to be very careful what you allow to slide by. It doesn't get better without help. So, hopefully, people around them will take it seriously. Next time, there may not be a recovery. Absolutely, because think about it. Like in all seriousness, think about it. Aside, this situation probably wouldn't have happened if he had had his mom or his dad with him like normally, because they would have been present and he probably would have been too nervous to do it. You see what I'm saying? Because they're supposed to take him to the class. Not saying that he would have been able to do it still, because it's a possibility that he could have. But think about it. Your mom or your dad is escorting you basically to the classroom. You're gonna want to
Hmm.
be on your best behavior while you're in their view. The last thing you want to do is act up while they're with you. You know,
And
and
then
who
all three of
knows?
us, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say all three of us too. We have to understand that to my knowledge, none of us were also diagnosed with any mental illness and suffer from any type of mental illness. So again, this is a different caveat to this whole situation.
Uh, yeah, but like their mental there's a mental illness there, but there's also like I was saying, there's a level of intelligence there to be able to go get a locked gun, unlock it, put it in a bag, and get through. With the bag being checked, to go to a
Yeah, I
teacher
mean,
and
of
say,
course, there's a definitely a level of intelligence
like, I
there,
mean,
but you
if
don't
you
but obviously you don't understand the consequences of your actions.
here's the thing
Because
though,
if you do that, you you're not aware of what comes behind it.
but here's the thing,
Probably to a
even if it
6 year
was
old, they understand police and jail a little bit, but they don't really know all that goes along with that either.
not
I'm
like
pretty
that
sure.
though. I'm not talking about police or jail. I'm saying just even the thought of hurting someone, even if it was a water gun. Squirting a water gun at someone is like, especially if you get them in certain parts, the eyes or whatever, it does affect them. So no matter, even if you didn't shoot, just the sight of a gun will put someone at alarm and it'll affect them. As a child, who, if you're able to go get a gun and use it, you know the effect that you're getting to some degree, because why would you do it? Obviously, this child was mad at the teacher for whatever reason. That's why he slammed the phone down 2 days prior. And then the day that he's supposed to be suspended, he comes back with the gun. So, like, clearly, there's a level of intelligence here, but because of the law, they don't want to necessarily take accountability for that.
Mm,
But we have a guest here.
I feel like I kind of have a I feel like I kind of have a different perspective in the strength of I grew up in the inner city amongst a bunch of kids who were, mentally challenged, especially when it came to PTSD and anger issues. I was in that realm. So I'm not necessarily saying I have a soft spot, but I do understand because I've seen kids do some things and act out in certain ways that you don't normally see. But again, this is where I say we're all individuals. And if you have some sort of mental illness or something's wrong in your head, obviously you're not thinking like most people do in certain situations. I've seen kids assault teachers several times. I've never seen a teacher get shot in my face or anything like that, but I've definitely seen kids assault teachers, and it's usually triggered by some emotional situation with a kid who obviously doesn't have them all or who has issues at home. I've seen it several times. I was best friends with a kid who actually, unfortunately, if I tell the story, back in the 90s, I was friends with a kid who punched the teacher, and the teacher had a heart attack and died.
Mm, goodness.
Um, so, and I was, after that situation happened, I was still around this kid, and I can honestly say he didn't understand the consequences of what was going on.
Hmm. All right.
So
Um. So.
it's a wild situation to be in, and like I said, I'm not making any excuses. I'm just giving you guys a different perspective. Yes, kids are intelligent enough to do X, Y, Z, but in the same token, being a kid and you've been there before as a kid, you know for a fact that you don't fully understand the consequences of your actions, and your actions usually as a child are very impulsive and in nature.
Hmm.
You're a kid, your mom tells you before you go to the store, hey, I don't have money to get XYZ, so don't ask me for nothing. But what do you do when you get in the store as a kid? Mommy, give me this, give me this, give me this. You don't care. And it's not that you don't care in the way of you don't care. It's you don't care in the way of you don't understand what your mother told you in such a sense of her not having the means to get that at that current moment or that you couldn't get.
Got you. Got you. Hey, we have a guest here. Shout out to Erica for hitting the panel. I know she has some thoughts on this particular conversation. What are your thoughts on the situation with the 6-year-old?
Has it occurred to either of you that this kid was it's just crazy? He sounds like
Absolutely.
That's why I keep bringing up that he has mental issues. Yes, the child that's had mental
okay,
issues, like he's
Right.
mental
Right.
clinically
issues
been
isn't
diagnosed
crazy.
with mental issues from a doctor. So there is there's an issue there for sure.
N- No, I don't mean like mental issues like I mean like crazy as in he was kind of possibly hardwired to be like this. So okay. So my thing is, let's fast forward to adults who act like that actually. We have the whole Shanquello Robinson situation that happened over in Mexico, where she's on what she thought was a trip with a bunch of friends, and she ends up getting pretty much murdered by all of them. I think they all had a hand in killing her. And when you go into the history of the people that was actually involved, they have a history of doing this going all the way back to childhood. So when you don't pay attention to stuff like this and you try to make concessions for them, once they get older, they will continue to assume that concessions will be made. Just the way that they tried to cover up what they did to her indicates that they thought that they were going to get away with it, even though they really didn't do a good job at covering it up. But they thought paying off some people to not say anything and running a ridiculous story, probably things they did back when they were kids, they thought that was going to suffice. And so all I'm saying is you have him at 6 years old. He's already done something heinous. Now is the time to grab a hold of him and make sure he's going in the right direction versus trying to make excuses about mental health and, oh, he's just six and all of that, because he had enough wherewithal and know-how to not only get something that was not even really easily obtainable to him, and also managed to get it past people at school to do what he did. And this is after he had already threatened, which means he knew what he was going to do. So it's like, at some
Absolutely.
point, when do people begin to take account? When does accountability start? Does it start at 6? Does it start at 10? Does it start at 18? Like, when does it start?
Accountability is accountability is always at the forefront of almost everything. I don't disagree with that at all. The thing is, with the Shinquella situation that you gave, or the example you gave, me personally, I can't speak on the backgrounds of the people because I don't know those people. But what I can do is say this: you have to also understand that everybody's an individual person, and I think we should look at everybody in a general way, because me, with the background that I come from, I can give you several examples of good kids coming up and they become adults and they become terrible adults. I can also show you situations of terrible kids who grew up to be good adults. So when it comes to situations like that, it's an individual thing. I feel like, well, not it's not even that I feel like. I understand and I know that your individual experiences and what you dealt with in your growth to make it to adulthood and everything in between, that shapes the type of person you eventually become, regardless. So we have a situation where a 6-year-old has obvious mental issues. He assaulted a teacher with a weapon. Understood. Very bad. Not a good thing. But when you have a 6-year-old who was already clinically diagnosed with mental illness, I think we need to look up exactly what mental illnesses he was diagnosed with, because he's a if I'm not mistaken, he was very it was a few of them. But when you have a situation where there's a 6-year-old with obvious mental issues, you know, if he's not in his right mind, you know, how much accountability are you going to put onto him? He doesn't have them all there, obviously. He's a couple screws short. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. I'm just saying, you know, there's a lot to unpack in this situation. It's very unfortunate. Of course, the parents should be held accountable in some sort of way, for sure. Not denying that. The people who check the bag should be held accountable in some sort of way. And the kids should be held accountable to a certain extent. But to just say that, okay, he's crazy and he may grow up to be XYZ, we don't know. He's only 6. He still has a lot of living to do. I've seen kids that were his age grow up that were terrible and turn out to be good. And then I've seen vice versa. So, like I said, this is an individual thing. I think we should look at it as an individual thing and not try to lump it together with everybody. So we just got to be careful with doing that, because that's how you end up getting to situations where of race, where you have probably Europeans who think that all black people are predisposed to violence, which we're not. So you start to create a slippery slope when you do the generalization thing. But that's all I got to say on that particular
Is
thing.
it really a generalization if he took a whole gun and shot a teacher? What are we generalizing?
Not just that.
No,
Not hold
no,
on,
I'm
real quick.
saying oh go ahead.
Yeah, real quick. Not just the gun, but you have to also look at the behavioral pattern prior to the gun, where he's displaying anger physically towards the same
Yeah,
teacher.
something's wrong with the kid for sure.
Absolutely. So
Something's
he goes
wrong with the
from
kid.
being angry at this teacher for whatever reason that has yet to be disclosed as to why he threw her phone and broke it. But now that he's suspended for a day, he decides to come back the very day he's suspended with the gun. Like clearly there are some anger issues going on.
Exactly. And that's why I
Without
feel
question.
like by him being in some sort of facility, I'm not saying lock the kid away and throw away the key and, but if he's in some sort of institution where he can get help, but also be able to just start learning that certain things hurt. When I was a child, I knew that if I pinched my brother, that would hurt. I knew that if I touch the stove, it's hot, it's going to hurt, it's going to burn. How do you not know that taking a gun at that age, taking a gun and actually shooting someone where you see blood coming out isn't going to be a problem? It's like I don't, maybe I just grew up slightly different, but I understood what that was.
And and you
Unfortunately,
Even though I'd
sometimes
never been
experience
through
is
it,
the
I knew what
best
it
teacher.
was.
and you know that he knows it's wrong because look at the amount of effort he had to put in to go get it.
Yes.
Listen, I'm telling you, sometimes experience is the best teacher.
That's
Sometimes
true.
somebody can tell you a million and one times. I know my mama told me the stove was hot 1,000 times, but I had to find out the stove was hot the hard way because I wanted to find out. Unfortunately, it is what it is. Kids do stuff like that. I
To
have
not
a two
drag
year old, and I go through this every day with a 2 year old. Hey, don't touch that. That's bad. He looks at me, doesn't care, and touches it anyway. He has to learn.
my parting comment about this, because I don't want to drag it on because I could really go in forever. Um, Scared Straight is full of nice kids that was doing a lot of crazy stuff that wasn't caught in time, and they ended up getting to a point where the parents couldn't do anything with them, and so they had to employ a show or a program or something to help them. That's all I'm gonna say.
I disagree, and I can do that because this is personal
Uh,
experience.
how can you disagree with the show I saw?
I'm
But
not
go ahead.
disagreeing with the show. I'm not disagreeing with the show. I'm disagreeing with the situation that all of the kids there were terrible. Me and my brother were placed in Scared Straight by our father. Um, I don't think we were terrible kids, not by a long shot. We weren't doing anything at that particular time. But my father said, hey, I'm going to throw them in Scared Straight so they can have this XYZ experience. Now, I can't speak for him because I never asked him why he did it, but I can assume that he did it because he already had four adult children who were somehow in the penal system, whether they were in there for life or some sort of other way. So maybe he felt like that was a preventative measure for us to see as when we were young to not want to be in that environment. And he put us in the Scare Straight program. Now, did it work? I don't know. Neither one, me and my brother are in prison right now. But in the same breath, I don't feel like we deserve to be there, considering what we know the Scare Straight program is to be now. So I'm just saying, everybody that's in Scared Straight isn't necessarily a bad kid.
I'm not saying that they're all bad. I'm just saying that there's a lot of kids that was on there where they ran down the rap sheet that was longer than a lot of adults. So it's like at some point you have to kind of look at the fact that the time to actually get people on the right track is not once they've already, harmed a whole slew of people and now suddenly we care. If you see that behavior when they're small, you need to catch it while they're small.
For sure. And
So,
then another thing too, I feel like when it comes to things of that nature, I feel like the whole entire justice system needs a completely revamp from the juvenile system up to the adult system. because obviously these facilities and these programs don't rehabilitate. Only thing they do is facilitate your return back to the system. Because sometimes once you get into that prison mode or that pipeline, you never leave it, and it's going to be a revolving door. So the whole system needs to be revamped because it's not known for rehabilitating anyone. You know, it if you go in as a juvenile and you're able to continue to do and do and do, regardless of how many times you get locked up, you and then you go into adulthood, you might continue those the same behaviors.
Hmm.
What is the point of it?
So I think that you got to look at it also from a business sense. You know, having empty cells isn't necessarily financially beneficial. So that's why they do it like that revolving door exists. But I want to pose back to the topic. I want to pose something to you guys. What are your thoughts about, because this is a one incident where the parent was not taking the child to the classroom or escorting them to school, period. Do you think that there have been incidents in the past, and this is for both of you, do you think that there have been incidents in the past where this child was uh, left unattained, on their own, unwatched, or was supposed to be watched, but the person that was their guardian or watching over them wasn't necessarily paying attention to them? Do you think that that could
All
have been
right,
the case prior?
I will say this straight out the gate. Obviously, there's something going on. If the kid was in a program where he had to be watched by his guardians at all
Right,
times, so
right.
obviously, yes, there's something happened or something was going on, or his mental illness is just that bad where he has to be supervised at all times, for sure, without question.
So I think that does allude to prior behaviors, because when you think about that, most children that go to elementary school aren't necessarily escorted like that. And from where things are now, most children don't have their bags inspected. Most children don't even get suspended in elementary school to begin with. So this is a peculiar case where there's clearly some history here with this child and their anger management or lack thereof. And I think that really speaks volumes beyond just a gun being involved and beyond just the prior history. I think that the anger issues are something that if he doesn't get treatment for, he's gonna still have those issues as an adult, as a teen, and if he already knows how to shoot a gun, uh, you could only expect to go downhill from there at that point, if he doesn't get help. And that's the whole thing. Like, I think really, like, the parents need to be investigated as far as how they run their household, because this is something that really, like, especially knowing and just seeing that this child's mental makeup, guns shouldn't have been in the house, period, locked or unlocked, understanding that this child is quick to anger and that they handle anger in a very aggressive physical way. Like, it's not just being angry or upset and crying, it's being angry and willing to specifically damage things and attack things. So I think it really speaks to what's actually going on in their home that needs to be inspected. And I think that's what they're investigating at this point. I can't say for sure, but they still are investigating. But I like to see, how things are ran at home, if they can get some inspection done, and get some thoughts from other family members about how they maintain their home. What are you
Yeah,
guys' thoughts on that?
definitely that. But my thing is, he wait because I forgot all about that part. He waited until he didn't have a guardian with him to do this. You think for a moment if his dad or mother was with him, he would have pulled out a gun and shot his teacher?
Nah.
No. So that again goes to the fact that he knows what he's doing. And if he knows what he's doing, then he can face the consequences. But I do understand the fact that he does need help. I think that if they put him in a facility somewhere and he's able to get that, just really drill down into what exactly the issue is that's driving the, anger, but also get him anger management, get him other types of therapy, whatever mental issues he's going through. Maybe there's something that they can actually do to help counteract that, early while he's a child. Because it's like, what was the next step up? So let's say his parents went with him to school every day, and then let's say he misbehaved. What was the next step up from that? Whatever it is, you have to add 10 to that because he shot somebody. So it's like, at this point, the only thing that I think will work, since apparently being in that household isn't working, is being in a facility where he's not able to hurt anybody. And maybe, just maybe, you might be able to save him.
Now, I definitely understand where you're coming from there. Do you think that by putting him in a facility kind of ruins the potential trajectory of him kind of having a different life as he gets older? Or,
No, because I'm not talking about putting them in like a prison, but like a
right.
facility where there may be other kids who's facing the same issues. And, just being able to get the assistance that he's clearly not getting, just walking around. I think that the trajectory of his life is going to severely be changed if you leave him out here just walking around, not getting any help, and he does something worse and he ends up in prison for real.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right.
Before we move on, I got one thing to add.
Sure.
So um, I agree. Let's investigate his home situation. Let's do that. But I'll leave you with this. Remember that situation where I told you the kid, the friend of mine who punched the teacher had a heart attack?
Yeah.
Now, of course, there was a big media circus around the situation, and I remember like it was yesterday how the news channels were trying to knock on his parents' door, how they were coming to their work or place of business trying to get interviews from them. It was a very stressful situation. And I like to also add that he grew up in the inner city like I did. He met both his parents in his life. They were married. They had two other kids. One of them happened to be special needs. He obviously had some mental issues in the house, and they grew up in a good home. Now, when I say we were friends, I don't mean just me and him were friends. I mean our parents were friends, as in my mother and my stepfather were friends with his mother and his father. So we knew each other very well, all of us. So I'm watching this unfold because he had a good household. Besides him having a mentally challenged sister, older sister, who was special needs, everything was good. But he still had problems. Obviously, he had mental issues because he assaulted a teacher and he let his anger get the best of him. But then, like I said, it's an individual thing. He did what he did, and he had gone up to it at some point. But I know for a fact, being with him going through that situation, he did understand the consequences of what was going on, even though he took it upon himself to assault the teacher after they had a verbal situation that happened.
Got you. Got you.
So
I,
I just want to just say that's what I'm saying. Let's keep in mind, the mentality of what's going on here.
I wonder how the parents handled him um, damaging the teacher's phone and him getting suspended. Because if he's suspended, we're assuming that both parents are working, he shouldn't have been able to leave the house in the first place. Like that's what I'm saying. You really have to look at what's going on in the home. If he's suspended, that means that he clearly has a history of this behavior, and he's able to go into the school on the day he's suspended. Like so, it's just too many things that for me it's like who is watching him, who is responsible for him, and in this case, because he was supposed to be suspended, a parent would not escort him to the school because he was suspended. So, like, you really have to look at, is the school nearby? Is it close? How did he get there? And who is responsible for watching him? Those are questions. It's a lot
I
of
don't know. I
questions
think we
that
need to do a little bit more digging into that because, man, you saying the kid went to the school on the day he was supposed to be suspended?
yes,
That's pretty wild to me. Pretty
Oh, I
fucking wild.
didn't know that. I thought that he did this on the day that he was supposed to be admitted back. So if he was still supposed to be suspended, then no wonder there was no supervision at the
and my
school with them.
my my point is again, when you have people that check the bags, did they not know he was suspended?
Goodness, yeah. That's actually a very good point.
I know when I was in school, if I was suspended, I couldn't walk in school. They would already know. They got a list of
Exactly.
kids like, hey, you
And if
suspended. You
I
ain't
walk
supposed to
in
be here, G.
school, right, and if I walk in school without a parent, when I normally go with the parent, where's your parent? Let me call your mom.
Right.
Like, so that's what I'm saying. Like, it's too many untangled, lines here for me, and I'm seeing patterns where it's like, okay, clearly, it's more than just like an issue with this particular child. It's some other things that need to be identified, and so I really hope that they do a thorough investigation with this one, just to get a solid conclusion, because it's a lot of things that need answered. Um, but yeah, this is a good discussion. Just to get you guys' thoughts and perspectives. As always, appreciate it, Maurice and Erica. Glad to have you on the panel and your thoughts and opinions. I hope you stick around for the next topic, because this is the main topic of the night. And you guys did bring up Shanquella, so I do want to make sure that we share exactly what happened with Shanquella Robinson. So here's the backstory. Um, Shanquella Robinson traveled to a resort town, which is San Jose del Cabo in Mexico. And this is back in October 28th of last year. And she traveled with six friends from her university for a week long stay at the luxury apartments there. Within 24 hours of their arrival, the 25-year-old Shanquella Robinson was dead. Her friends delivered her suitcases to her heartbroken parents, her father Bernard and her mother Salamandra, who are from where Shanquella is from, Charlotte, North Carolina. And the original report that came out said that she died of alcohol poisoning after a day of heavy drinking. When an autopsy was done on November the 10th, it completely discredited the friend's story about Shanquella, and it showed that the cause of death was actually a severe spinal cord injury and a broken neck, and those were done 15 minutes before she died. So then, on the 15th, which is 5 days after the autopsy was given, and discredited the story of her friends, her former friends, on the 15th, footage emerged online of Shanquella, who was naked in the video, being brutally beaten in the resort hotel room by one of the university friends that went with her. Basically, in the clip, one of the women friends, approached her, knocked her to the ground, and then delivered a set of flurry of punches and kicks. Shanquella was defenseless, so she slumped to the floor, and her attacker continued to, proceed to assault her. Shanquella was inexplicably naked, but her attacker was fully clothed. The person who recorded the video was a man who taunted Shanquella uh, to try to, like, I guess, get her to do something, but he didn't intervene. He said something like "fight back" or something like that. Um, so they took the video, and her parents, I think more so her father, inspected the video and verified that it was his daughter in the video. And he went on an interview with TMZ, basically telling them that the attack, he believes that the attack was premeditated by the people she thought were her friends. Um, so saying like his daughter's not a fighter at all, things like that. This clip, if you haven't seen it already, has went viral on social media, and hence the hashtag Justice for Quella began on all the popular social medias: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. Since then, there have been some major discrepancies between the Mexican authorities' official account of what happened before Shanquella's death and what others had claimed happened that night. So there was a police report that was provided, and the police report revealed that there were emergency responders that treated Shanquella in this apartment for about 4 hours before she died. In the police report, police claimed that the alarm was raised at 2:23 p.m. on October 29th, which is a day after Shanquella and her friends arrived at the resort. A doctor arrived an hour later to find her verbally unresponsive, and then not too long after that, she suffered a seizure. The police report does state that her friends refused the doctor's recommendations to transfer Shanquella to a hospital. They insisted that the doctor keep Shanquella at the resort. And it was only when death was imminent that an ambulance was called for Miss Robinson. She went into cardiac arrest, and after a doctor had tried to administer 14 rounds of CPR, gave her several doses, I think it was 5 doses of adrenaline, 6 discharges on a defibrillator, all of their efforts were in vain, and she was pronounced dead at 5:57 p.m. This particular saga that happened over a span of 4 hours pretty much is in opposition to what actually is described on the death certificate, that she died 15 minutes after suffering a broken neck. It's not clear to the authorities yet if the doctor that was treating her was aware that she was suffering from a spinal injury, or whether her friends insisted that she had alcohol poisoning affected the treatment she was given. Likely, since they told the parents that. Um, Currently, the FBI in Charlotte has opened an investigation into her death, and the doctor who treated her and the police officers that were also present are also reportedly under investigation by Mexican authorities. Also, the Baja California State Attorney General's office, where Cabo is located, is investigating Shanquella's death as a possible femicide, which is a form of gender-based violence. On the 23rd of November, prosecutors in Mexico issued an arrest warrant for just one member of the traveling group, and then eventually they started carrying out the warrants for the rest of the friends of Shanquella. Currently, there are no further updates on this particular case, but what's happening is they need to currently get answers from her friends who are dubbed the Cabo Six. They are in the process of trying to detain them all to get some answers as to what happened. Um, so this is an incident that took place in Mexico. Uh, Currently, recently we've had reports a few days ago about 4 American friends who were also kidnapped in Mexico, and 2 of them were killed, and 2 of them got away. And there's a whole nother story about them. Uh, Prior to all of this, due to my research, my limited research, um, there's also been several warnings coming from the U.S. Embassy in Mexico, stating that U.S. Citizens shouldn't necessarily travel to Mexico because of the amount of crimes, gun violence, robberies, and abductions that have reportedly taken place. That was reported around December of 2019. My opinion is that when COVID came, the pandemic slash pandemic, those reports of telling people to no longer travel to Mexico were changed to don't travel to Mexico because of the pandemic, uh, hoping to scare people away from traveling to Mexico, but it didn't work. Um, so now the U.S. Treasury, as of recent, I'm sorry, the U.S. Embassy in Mexico, as of recent, as well as the government, is now saying to not just citizens but also government officials to stay out of Mexico. That it's not safe, and that they should be aware of those who are in Mexico of their safety. So clearly, there's something going on in Mexico with travelers coming into the country. These last two stories with Shanquella Robinson and then the four people who, the four Americans that were kidnapped, they were all black. And that brings the question, what are you guys' thoughts about? First, we'll go with the Shanquella story, and then I'll give you more background story on the four Americans. What are you guys' thoughts about this whole situation with Shanquella as well as Mexico as well?
I mean, I'm gonna speak limited on the Shanquella situation, but
Sure.
I'll say a couple things here. You know, of course, there's a lot of talk and a lot of criticism behind the whole situation.
Hmm.
What what the so-called friends did was definitely wrong and all of that. Um, I do have a problem with this generation in particular that they want to pull out their cameras and record everything. I really hate that about this coming generation, and I really hate that we're reduced to doing that instead of diffusing situations or trying to help. That's one thing about that. As far as the fight, let's be real. I don't know about y'all, but in the environment I grew up in, fights were just as normal as eating a bowl of cereal in the morning. So we've all seen fights. I've seen hundreds of fights. I've seen girls fight. I've seen guys fight. I've seen both fight each other. It's just a situation where the fight it it took a hefty turn and it ended up somebody losing their life. Doesn't happen often, but it does happen. Let's just be real. That's not the first time somebody's gotten killed because they hit their body in the wrong spot or just the wrong kind of head trauma, caused the death. It's an unfortunate situation. Shouldn't have happened, and I feel like it shouldn't have been publicized. Uh, you know, but it is what it is. You know, my heart goes out to that lady and her family. And I hope that her family does get justice. And I hope if all of her friends were in on her being her death, they all should justice should prevail and they all should get whatever they got coming to them. And as far as the tourism in Mexico goes, hey, look, especially with this last situation, it's a situation of basically this. You don't got to threaten me, with telling me that, what I'm saying, don't risk my life to go there. Hey, at this point, I'm seeing too many things going on. I'm not going there till, it can be proven that this is a safe place for me to visit. I mean, I'm just not doing it, and I'm not comfortable, and I'm not going to do it. So that's just my take on that.
Well, my take on the whole Shanquella thing, I'm actually glad that this was recorded because had it not been recorded, the authorities in Mexico was already ready to sweep it under the rug, like, oh, it was, alcohol poisoning and case closed. They weren't going to do anything. The only reason why they're now investigating as heavy as they are is because of not even just the United States, outcry, but worldwide at this point. Everybody is asking Mexico to do something about this. And so I think that she would have a less chance of having any sort of like retribution if everything had just been kept quiet and nobody recorded. Furthermore, I think that it was recorded because all of her friends were in on it. None of them was going to help her because they planned to do this. And so it's like, of course they're going to record it. It was, supposed to be something that they record to embarrass her with or whatever, because allegedly there was another person actually on the phone with one of the people in the room on FaceTime, and they were watching and laughing. And so this was a plot to basically make her look crazy. And I don't think they intended for it to go that way. But, you know, best laid plans, plots, or whatever, you know, paved the hell because she actually died. So that's unfortunate. But had this not actually been publicized, she would not be getting any help. But as for the people down in Mexico, I think this is very interesting. Apparently the lady was supposed to be getting a BBL or whatever. I don't think that she was there to get a BBL. There's just too much surrounding that story that doesn't make sense. And I honestly think it has something to do with drugs, but I'm waiting for the whole story to come out because it just doesn't seem like it's adding up. I don't think that Americans are safe to go into Mexico at this time. So I also will not be heading anywhere near Mexico anytime soon, if ever, really.
All right. Yeah, I definitely second you guys' thoughts about traveling to Mexico. I think I'll never be comfortable traveling to Mexico at this time, and I think it would be extremely hard to kind of try to get me to travel to Mexico in the future, unless the relations with Mexico and U.S. citizens have been fixed. And it's going to take some serious, uh, showcasing of evidence to state that. I don't think it's going to happen. Um, as far as the Sharon Queller situation, yeah, I think that I understand both arguments. One, you shouldn't have someone, just telling someone, "Hey, fight back," while recording. But at the same time, we are thankful of the recording because the recording completely uh, exposes the lie that they told her parents about how she died, which was alcohol poisoning. And the video concurs with the autopsy report that she has suffered, 15 minutes before she died, suffered a broken neck and spine, which were likely the cause of death. Um, so I think it's a peculiar case. It's definitely makes you question the people that you with. Make sure that the people that you surround yourself with are really there for you. And sometimes you have to vet people like that. Shanquella was very successful among her peers, had several businesses and things. So uh, I'm willing to even think she probably funded the trip as well. So for the friends to do something like this clearly shows that they were never friends to begin with. I hope that she does get justice in this case. Currently, the parents are asking for diplomacy with Mexico and the U.S. government to try to resolve this issue, figure out what's going on. I think they're still on the lookout for some of the members of the Capital Six for more information to help with the investigation. And like Erica said, this is a national wide issue. It's an international issue actually. So other countries are watching how this is handled. Uh, Simply because this will put a mark on Mexico if their their system is corrupt. And if we have Mexican police officers who are involved in the orchestration of this thing, it really opens up a big can of worms that I don't think Mexico is ready for. So I think that's a big deal uh, with her situation, and yeah, I just hope that she gets her justice. Um, with this other situation, let me give you guys the backstory here just a little bit. Um, so for Americans, let me go ahead and stop sharing this by the way. So there are four Americans, citizens that were close friends, and these are all black citizens. They were going to Mexico for a trip, and all four of them grew up in South Carolina. Don't forget, Shanquella was in North Carolina, so folks from the Carolinas going to Mexico, it just doesn't look like a good combination. I wouldn't go, period, but just from these two stories, it doesn't look good. Um, so what happened is these four friends um, went to Mexico for a trip, and as they get there, as soon as they cross the Texas border on this past Friday, they were fired upon by gunmen and kidnapped in a Mexican city that's along the border. Two of them were killed. Shaheed Woodard and Zendel Brown were the ones killed. The survivors, Latavia Washington McGee and Eric Williams, and they're currently recovering in a Texas hospital. And the attack took place in the city of Matamoros, which is in the state of, and excuse me for butchering the names, the states, Tamaulipas, which is under a do not travel to advisory of the U.S. State Department website due to crime and kidnapping. Mexican authorities have arrested one person in connection with the case. A 24-year-old man, only identified as Jose N., who is allegedly guarding the victims at a wooden house in the Lagunoa area outside of Matamoros. The Attorney General of the state said in a tweet that the kidnapping appeared to be a case of mistaken identity and that the group of Americans may have been confused with the rival Haitian gang. So even if you look like you might be Haitian, or even if you're black, it looks like they're trying to paint it as a race thing. So we'll go over the individuals, give them their delight, because this also needs to be something that's international because what's going on in Mexico is nuts. But Shaheed Woodard, who was one of the ones who passed away, uh, was a he worked at a hotel in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. He leaves behind many nephews and nieces that he was an uncle to. Um, and so he was considered a brother to Latavia, who was one of the survivors. Zendel Brown, who's also one of the ones who passed away, he also lived in Myrtle Beach, and uh, he traveled to them to Mexico, and he was close with them as well. Zendel knew that the trip was going to be dangerous because he kept telling his friends we shouldn't go down. But I guess they didn't necessarily take heed to his intuition, letting them know that they shouldn't have took the trip. The survivors: Latavia McGee, a 35-year-old mother of six from Myrtle Beach as well. Uh, like Erica said, she was supposed to be going to Mexico for a medical procedure, and this is actually her second time in the past 2 or 3 years traveling to Mexico for that reason. Um, so, based on what she said and a friend of hers said, it was cosmetic surgery that was being done while they went there. She is a survivor and she's currently being cared for in the hospital. And lastly is Eric Williams. Let me go ahead and show you guys the picture of these individuals. But Eric Williams basically is currently out of surgery. He was shot 3 times in his legs, but he's currently talking and everything, so he's doing better than what they thought. But seeing his friends get killed in front of him definitely would be a shock. Um, so these are the individuals. Let me share this with you guys. You can see real quickly. So I think, in my opinion, and I'll make this clear. This is my opinion. Um, I think that there's something definitely going on in Mexico where these abductions are taking place, and without the cases that we have where limelight is being given, I'm likely to believe that there are also other cases where maybe there were no survivors, or maybe there were no videos present to let people know about the incidents. And I think that's kind of scary because uh, in the world of social media and people recording things, the last thing you would think of is being somewhere that's a foreign country from your own and fearing for your life. So um, this was brought to light, and I hope that this case starts a international investigation into what's going on in Mexico, and to possibly bring some light to if other people are also missing or were killed there that were also traveling there as U.S. citizens. I think that for a country like Mexico that thrives off of tourism, I think that that'll definitely hurt their tourism. It'll definitely hurt their money, and I think that'll put them on watch for good. But these are the four American friends. The two on the end, the two black men on the end, are the ones who did not survive. Latavia and Eric in the middle are the only survivors. Any last thoughts about this particular situation? Because I do have another and some updates to talk about.
I mean, honestly, what you just broke down was kind of like my first full introduction to the whole situation. Like I had heard it and I seen the headlines, but I didn't really get too entrenched into it. So now that you tell me what you just said, I'm like, wow, this is heavy, man. Scary stuff, really it is.
Yeah.
Y- Yeah, so I'm like reading up on this on Wikipedia. I don't usually like to use Wikipedia, but it's handy at the moment. Apparently, a Mexican bystander was also killed when she was struck by stray bullets during the abduction.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And the US, I don't know, is it the US government that's saying that this was, yeah, US officials believe that they were confused for Haitian drug smugglers by members of a drug cartel. So I don't understand how, I mean, I think the drug smuggling is like a dead ringer for the truth, but I don't
Yeah.
understand like the whole Haitian thing and why they're trying to turn it into something racial when plenty
Yeah.
of things happen in this country that is racial that they try to not term as Haitian as racial. So I just find that kind of interesting.
Yeah, I felt that an interesting spin as well because I'm like, what does them looking Haitian have to do with anything? And if it's like that there in Mexico, then that needs to be something that's again that the world needs to be aware of. That any Haitians or anyone who looks or appears to be Haitian probably shouldn't visit Mexico.
That's pretty much all of us, because Haitians are Africans, bro. So I mean,
Absolutely.
like
Exactly.
we
Exactly.
of a diaspora, like we all look alike,
Exactly.
regardless.
But that
And
I'm
that's why
saying,
it makes it that much more weird.
yeah,
I don't think that's necessarily the case. If I may go into my, tinfoil hat, I think the US knows something about what's going on in Mexico, but we don't know. But I think it's possible that the Mexican citizens know. We're always the last to know. Pretty
yeah.
much everything. It's like we're, apparently the most free country, on the planet, but we have like the most like we don't get information. We don't get the information like everybody else gets it. And so it's like when we look at other countries and they're putting out news articles about the United States, we assume that they're lying or exaggerating, when in actuality, our government is actually lying to us. And so I think this may be another one of those situations. So they're trying to throw some race on it real quick so that they can get that swept under the rug so that we can stop paying attention to that.
Interesting, interesting. Yeah, I think it definitely needs to be looked at in a different light. I think trying to sweep it under the rug as a, oh, they were out to attack Haitians. It's almost as if it's being condoned. It's really irritating. Um,
It's also possible that this BBL situation was actually a cover, because a friend actually told me about this right before I jumped on here. Apparently, people go to Mexico for these cosmetic surgeries, but they're actually putting drugs in the women. So it's like if you're getting like breast implants, apparently the implants can have like drugs in them. So when they come back to the states, they're supposed to go to someone very specific so that they can actually remove it from them. So that could also be a situation where they may have been actually drug smuggling, and the fact that she's done that before makes me wonder if she actually had some sort of surgery before
Mm.
where she was smuggling drugs back into the States, and now she's going back to do it again and didn't think that it was going to go awry.
So they did report that this is her second time going back within 2 or 3 years.
That on top of the fact that apparently she had all of her kids removed because they had drug residue within them. They took hair follicles of the kids and found that they actually had drugs in their system. So that makes me wonder if they were ever used as mules as well.
Goodness, goodness. Yeah, if drugs is involved, that's definitely, again, we need to be known of these things because now anyone who looks black or looks Haitian could be confused for going to Mexico for trafficking. Like it really,
My only reason for going to Mexico is for tacos. Like I've been staying for
uh,
like a day now. And so now that I have my Mexican spot here, I don't need to go to Mexico. I'm good. I'm really good.
yeah, you definitely want to get stuck in Mexico for tacos. Not at all. Not at all. Um, so I want to go over this other situation, and then uh, we'll come back to these four people here. There's one other situation that came up uh, that was a girl that was kidnapped from a Washington State mall back in 2018 has recently been found alive and well in Mexico, according to the FBI. Uh, Aranza, I'm not going to put her full name out there. She was 4 years old when she was last seen on a supervised visit with her mother in Vancouver, Washington. Her mother was arrested in 2019 in Puebla, Mexico, but the girl, who's now 8 years old, had remained missing until she was found in Michoacan, Mexico, last month and has now been returned to the U.S. For more than 4 years, the FBI continued their search. So she's been gone for 4 years. So she's now, uh, I guess, 12 years old. She's technically a teen now. So she's missed a lot of her life being without her mother. Her mom did plead guilty in 2021 to second degree kidnapping and robbery and first degree custodial interference in the Clark County Superior Court. She got a 20-month prison sentence, and now uh, the child is declared a state. Um, so I think the mother's now getting like once or twice weekly visits with her daughter. Um, and so in this case, she had her daughter with her and basically fled to Mexico, and we hadn't seen her since. So another incident of people abducting individuals. This doesn't necessarily fit with the kidnapping situation of the four individuals prior, but it's definitely an interesting situation here. We'll go over the update of, because we have some updates of the four individuals who were shot at and the two that are living. Um, the cartel that was suspected of the kidnappings of those four American black people issued an alleged apology letter. So the cartel um, basically handed over five members of their own to local authorities, and Also showed images of them as well as a letter to officials, and they basically said, uh, "The Gulf Cartel apologizes to the Society of Matamoros, the relatives of Miss Areli, and the affected American people and families." Uh, that this letter wrote, and basically um, reporting to the other Mexican women that had died in the shootout. Uh, Also, the bodies of the two American men that were killed was delivered on Thursday this week to U.S. diplomatic authorities. The other two tourists, like we said before, had survived the kidnapping and were uh, taken care of and getting care taken of in Texas hospital. The letter also states that the Gulf Cartel Scorpion Group strongly condemns the events of last Friday. For this reason, we decided to hand over those directly involved and responsible for the acts, who at all times acted under their own determination and in discipline and against the rules in which the Gulf Cartel always operates. Uh, the law enforcement can't confirm the authenticity of the photos and has asked U.S. as well as Mexican authorities for a comment and investigation. Um, in Mexican cartels history, it is common for them to at times release messages to authorities or even rival cartels um, after the aftermath of a high-profile incident. But in this particular case, it's a bit weird because one, they can't determine the legitimacy of the letter, and two, the people that they turned in as suspects that were responsible for the killing of the two gentlemen that were traveling as a floor to Mexico. Um, I know we were seeing a picture earlier, and they were like smiling, happy in the photo. So it's almost as if um, this is almost like the cartel saying "oops," and then here are some people that you can have in place of this particular incident reaching international news. What do you guys thoughts about
Me personally, I think that's cap.
that?
I think it's cap.
Absolutely.
I think it's cap. When has a cartel ever, ever?
Absolutely.
And I'm done.
It seems it's like a letter is just so like it's almost like, hey, I ran into your Honda last week, here's an apology letter, and have tacos on me, my bad. Who gives a letter for killing human beings? Like, what are you talking about, an apology letter? And I also don't think those were the five people that did it. Those were the five fall guys that they chose to throw out there. If this is authentic, they chose to throw some people out there that they didn't really like. Like, you know what? We actually like the people that did this. So you five motherfuckers over here, y'all need to go and turn yourself in, do whatever, or we're gonna kill you because we're not giving up our real people. So that's the energy it gives, and the fact that they were smiling tells me that they don't understand they may not understand like the complete, like, I don't think they get what they just got themselves into. And so it's like,
Right.
because if they knew, they wouldn't be smiling. So it's like something's not right. Just like the story of why they came into Mexico doesn't sound right. This whole situation is just weird, and I can kind of understand why the U.S. probably just want to call it something related to race and just get it over with, because they're probably scratching their heads too.
Yeah, I think like this is a situation where the cartels, like it really shows who's really running things in Mexico because clearly the authorities are not feared. First of all, they sent an apology letter along with these other gentlemen here who they say are responsible for the murder of the two gentlemen that traveled, and it's almost like a spit in the face of local authorities where it's like, okay, we're gonna help you do your job because clearly you're not doing your job. But at the same time, it's like, well, we'll do this just to prevent you from getting on our backs about the situation. You see what I'm saying? So it's utter disrespectful, and like Mexico, definitely those authorities need to tighten up. But if there's corruption going on, I doubt that they will. So that speaks to a bigger problem.
Do you
Um,
think they handed over a couple of bars of Choco Vivo with the letter, like some chocolate, like you know, make it interesting because it's like the letter doesn't make sense. It's like you killed people. What is the letter? Who wrote the letter? Was it the leader? Because we need him anyway. Like we're already not looking for like the leader of the cartel anyway. So it's like it's just it's weird. It's weird.
yeah, and then the cartel actually identified themselves.
Listen, when
I
you're the
also think,
leader of a multi-billion-dollar operation, you don't make yourself easily found. And even if you are, you have built up enough security that nobody's going to just come get you. It doesn't work like that.
right.
We seen what happened with El Chapo. Okay, it didn't. It wasn't an easy thing getting him. They were at it for over 20 some years trying to get that man.
Hey man, it's
Apparently, had they just written a letter to El Chapo, they might have been able to talk him into turning himself in. Apparently, letters work.
uh, yeah. It's just, to me, it's just a spit in the face. Clearly. All right, and then the last thing with this story here. Um, so I think regarding the whole situation, like the Shankwala situation, it brings limelight to what's going on in Mexico and cartel or no cartel. I think that this really like anyone who's investigating, take your time and really go through this whole country with the fine tooth comb to really figure out what's going on with why U.S. citizens, not people that look Haitian, not just black people, but actual U.S. citizens. Why are U.S. citizens having the hardest time in this country? Like when the both countries have a pact and a peace agreement. Why are they having problems? So clearly, like that needs to be on the table. If Mexico can't fix this shit, then the pact is over. Like we need to really step on that. But I'll do the thorough investigation on both incidents. Really figure out what's going on. I hope that if any others were abducted or killed that were traveling, I hope that that also gets surfaced because I think that there's much more going on in Mexico that has not been reported, and you know it's when it's your backyard, you don't question it until something looks out of place. So I definitely think that hopefully these incidents allow more light to be shown on other incidents that maybe people were unaware of. It's possible that family members that traveled to Mexico and never came back could have been abducted or killed. So it's tragic, but from us here at the You Ain't Finna Give It To Me Like That podcast, we definitely say stay your ass out of Mexico. Period. All right. Um so I want to wrap it up with a more positive tone um for the week here. Uh, of course, for those of you who know, uh, in a few hours it's going to be Friday, and there's some new music that's supposed to be coming out. What are you guys currently listening to right now? And if you are aware, what music are you looking forward to listen to this weekend?
I'm listening to
I'm
everything.
oh, go ahead. You got it.
No, I'm just gonna say I'm listening to everything, and whatever comes out, I will be happy to see.
Me personally, man, I'm listening to Steven G. I'm listening to Blast. Uh, Definitely heavy on the West Coast right now. So apparently, Blast has a new project about to come out this Friday or tomorrow. So can't wait. I'm definitely gonna be playing that soon as I see it pop up on my iTunes playlist.
Gotcha. Um, I think several people have reported on the Masagio album, self-titled. Also, the Kali Uchis album, Red Moon and Venus. A lot of people are sharing that one. It's getting a lot of plays as well currently. Um, as far as what's coming up, I don't necessarily see anything that I think is um, interesting at the moment. But what I'll do is I'll definitely take a look. I don't really have any one particular uh, type of artist or genre that I stick to. I kind of cross over multiple things and go at it at my own pace. So I'm kind of listening to a lot of stuff right now. For those of you who subscribe to Apple Music, I believe all three of us do. Apple Music will be launching towards the end of this month a classical app, Apple Music Classical, and it's going to be an iPhone only app. So yay for those of you Apple fanboys and fangirls. But it's an Apple.
I sense a little haterism in your voice.
It's just a little bit. It's an iPhone only app that is actually free with your Apple Music subscription. So you already have access to it, and it's Apple Music Classical. So basically, fine-tuned, improved classical music experience, starting with playlists from Prime Phonic and exclusive content uh, that for Apple Music subscribers you guys have access to, and it's free as long as you have your subscription. So that should be something that's coming soon. The date they currently have is March 28th, but we don't know officially. They usually, said it was supposed to appear last year, but I think this year they're probably going to stick with the 28th. Currently, you can pre-order it if you look for it, and it allows you some a different experience compared to the overall app. From beginners to those who are more experienced with classical music, you have your essential playlist, you have biographies of composers, you have your deep dive guides for certain works, and much intuitive browsing features. And you can also have a much more extensive search, such as work done by a composer, their work, conductor, catalog numbers, tracks, and etc. And all music is high res, lossless, and spatial audio. Um, so that's something that's currently available for pre-order. But I think, like everyone else, if you're interested in classical music, you'll wait until the 28th. I think that this starts the beginning of possibly Apple doing more in music, and if they're willing to do it with classical music, I like to see them entertain other genres and put that music out there, specifically genres that are no longer commonly listened to, such as your blues, your soul, and things like that. So um, definitely give this a try, and definitely for those who are interested in the classical music, report back on it. Let us know how it goes. I'll definitely see if I can get it on my iPad, but if not, then I'll have to wait. All right. Any last words from you guys? It's been a pretty long night. We're coming up on the 2 hour mark. Any last words, Maurice, Erica?
I had fun, man. I thought this was like a a good situation. We definitely had some conversations that probably needed to be had, and now it's time for some sort of solutions and reflections, especially on how to treat and move forward with mental health, the issues with the education system, issues with the justice system. So I mean, I think this is just going to open the conversation for a lot of more pressing issues, you know, for those to be had. And that's my final thoughts. I appreciate everybody who's going to tune in, who's going to listen. You know, just keep hitting that like, share, and subscribe button. You know, follow the podcast, man. We're trying to do big things here. We're gonna keep bringing you guys content.
Absolutely. Erica.
I had fun. Thank you for allowing me to be on the panel. And yes, I agree. It's time to find solutions. You can point out all the issues you want, but at some point you have to have solutions in place, or you're just talking. So I look forward to coming up with solutions, and hopefully things will begin to move in a more positive direction when it comes to mental health issues and how to treat it, not even just from adults, but children as well.
All right. As always, Erica, we appreciated you joining us here on the panel. It was wonderful. Thanks as well, Maurice. Always, help her hold it down. Yeah, I think this is a great one. We'll do more like this. Just kind of cover some trending news at the moment. Who knows? We may have another March trending news section. We'll see. But I think we definitely covered some things. Definitely opened up the door for further conversations, deeper conversations, maybe future shows. So yeah, I think it was excellent. I loved having Maurice and Erica on to share their views and perspectives. It's always welcome, always appreciated. Make sure you guys hit the like button, share, subscribe, and stay tuned. We have a lot more coming, but just know you ain't finna give it to me like that. All right. You guys have a great night. Wait a minute. Let's do that right.
Roll that music, big dog.